Today we discuss why Bo and Barzy are better together. Plus, should the Islanders go forward with Ilya Sorokin or Semyon Varlamov in goal? We've got all that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on today's show, you could send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am live tweeting on nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or any time. So last night, Tuesday night, the Islanders hosting the Chicago Blackhawks, and they eke out a 2-1 win. And yet one of the keys in that game was that during the game, Patrick Roy making a move that I thought was kind of long overdue. And I'm glad he did it. Let's just get to that. And that was reuniting Mathew Barzal and Bo Horvat. And look, I understand why Patrick Roy separated the great trio of Horvat, Nelson, and Barzal. It was a bold move at the time, but it did not give the Islanders enough balance, enough scoring depth. It worked as long as Kyle Palmieri was red hot, but as soon as Palms started to slow down a little bit, it just did not give the team enough balance throughout the lineup. And that top line was effective, but, wasn't good. It just wasn't good enough from top to bottom. And look, again, let's face it, and everydayers, you know how I feel about this. Patrick Roy is trying all these different line combinations for a few reasons. One of them is to get a better feel for what he's got. But with so little time left in the season, we're down to the last 7 games. Realistically, this is mostly done out of desperation. And the bottom line is the New York Islanders do not have enough top 6 forwards on their roster to fill out 6 players. And the lack of scoring depth and speed and skill on this roster is the main reason that Patrick Roy has not just been juggling lines game to game, but especially when the team is struggling offensively, and that's often, unfortunately, he has been juggling lines within periods. And it is essentially a desperate attempt to get guys going, to find a spark, to do something that will allow this team to get on track. And look, the Islanders beat Philadelphia by scoring 4 goals. But, before that, if you go back over the schedule, I mean, last night in the win against Chicago, 2 goals. Okay. That's not going to get you wins more often than not. The loss against Tampa Bay, 1 goal. The win over Florida, 3. They were shut out by the Devils. The last time they scored more than 3 goals, other than that Philly game, you go back to the win over Winnipeg. And then if you have to go before that, you go all the way back to March 10th, the end of the winning streak against Anaheim. So goals are still hard to come by. This team is now 23rd in the league in goals scored. And remember, earlier on in the season, they had started out better. So that's why Wah broke up Bo and Barzy. But realistically, I think, we are now at the point where we're 75 games into this season. And I think Bo Horvat and Mathew Barzal have demonstrated, without a shadow of a doubt, that they have good chemistry. They help each other. When they separated Barzal from Bo Horvat and Brock Nelson, but especially Bo Horvat. So, yeah, you're trying to get more balance. But look, what is Mathew Barzal? Yes, he has 23 goals this season. That is a new career high. But he is not a sniper. He's a playmaker. He is second on the team right now with 53 assists. Only Noah Dobson has more. And realistically, what you got was Mathew Barzal making, skating around and trying to buy time and space and often succeeding and then passing the puck across ice, and players just would not be able to finish those plays. Well, guess what? If you need a finisher right now, your team's leading goal scorer happens to be Bo Horvat with 31. And again, you add the chemistry. You add the fact that, Horvat is good at setting himself up in places for a one-timer or, finding that little crease in a defense. And you really have a situation where this duo works well together. Mathew, again, that brief period when you had Barzal, Nelson, and Horvat together, you saw how well that line clicked initially. It just reinforces for me that Mathew Barzal needs a finisher. And if the Islanders could add another 30 or even, perish the thought, 40 goal scorer, if they can get a real sniper to add to Horvat and Barzal as a line, the sky is the limit for Mathew Barzal. And I think both Horvat and Barzal would benefit a lot. But again, it falls back on Lou Lamoriello because it's going to be difficult to free up the money to pay a sniper and to acquire a sniper. Players are going to have to waive no trade clauses, and players are going to have to figure out, we're going to have to give away a player or two to free up cap space. There's a lot of obstacles between bad contracts, no trade clauses, and a lack of cap space to bringing in that sniper that this team so desperately needs and realistically has needed for a few years now. So at the very least, it makes sense to me to keep Bo and Barzy together. That gives you some juice, and you can play with the third member of the line. If you're desperate for a goal, you could bring Brock Nelson back. And there's no problem with that. You also have other options to finish out that line, whether you want to go Kyle Palmieri, whether you want to add some grit. They put Casey Cizikas up there against Chicago for a while. Hudson Fasching has played there on occasion. Anders Lee at times. But again, what you're noticing with all these suggestions, I make the suggestion and then I'm like, yeah, but there are shortcomings with all of these suggestions. So again, for the rest of this season, you keep Bo and Barzy together and you can mix and match the third guy on that line depending on the opponent, who's hot, what the situation is. If you're up a goal, if you're down a couple of goals, what do you need to do? That is all on Patrick Roy, and I think he can make some good decisions there. But again, the question becomes, long term, you got to find that third guy for that top line. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We're going to talk about who the Islanders should turn to in goal. No more back-to-backs. 7 games left. You got to figure one goalie is going to start more than half these games. Who's it going to be? Who should it be? We'll talk about that. We'll preview tonight's game against the Blue Jackets, and a tough one for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a winger who played with the Islanders for 1 season in the mid to late 90s. Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn the volume down with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day, and it brings you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, and it's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So 7 games to go. The Islanders are 1 point out of a playoff spot, a couple of points out of third place in the Metropolitan Division if the Flyers continue to falter. And, you look at the schedule, and as of right now, 3 of the 7 games are against teams that if the season ended now, they'd be in the playoffs. 4 of them are against teams that are right now on the outside looking in. But the question is, who do you start in goal? Starting tonight against Columbus. Ilya Sorokin played well last night, but has struggled a bit of late. He even admitted in an interview with the Hockey News after practice that he's working on his angles, that sometimes he has not always taken the best of angles in recent weeks, and that has been an issue for him. And, he just had a 6-game personal losing streak, which certainly does not help. Semyon Varlamov started 3 games in a row for the New York Islanders, won 2 of them. Varley has played fairly well as of late, certainly did contribute to big wins against Florida and against Philadelphia. And I guess the question, one of the many questions that Patrick Roy has to address is, who do I start in goal for the majority of the games? Now, Roy could alternate. There are no more back-to-backs. So, that's out of the question, not a factor anymore. The Islanders either have 2 or 3 day, a day off in between games, or 2 days off in between games for the rest of the season. And bottom line for the New York Islanders is they don't have any margin for error, because, they're 1 point out of a playoff spot and 2 points out of, the third place spot in the division. And they've got a game in hand on those Philadelphia Flyers. But here's the problem. You have Detroit also a point ahead of the Islanders. You have Pittsburgh 2 points behind, Buffalo 4 points behind, New Jersey 5 points behind. You have got essentially seven teams separated by 7 points, and with roughly 7 games or 6 games to go, depending on the team. So the Islanders not only have to pass, one team. Right now, there are 3 teams ahead of them. 2 of them are in the playoffs. 1 of them is out. So you got to pass 2 teams as of right now in these last 7 games. You cannot afford to have your goalie doing anything other than keeping you in games. He may have to steal a game or 2 at some point during the last 7 games, but a bad game by your goalie at any point the rest of the year could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. To me, I would go with Ilya Sorokin tonight against Columbus. That would be my initial inclination if I were Patrick Roy. And, again, that game, 7 o'clock Eastern time start, and you could hear every minute of that game, Islanders Blue Jackets, with the Islanders hometown broadcast on Sirius XM. Just go to the SXM app and search for Islanders. But I would go with Sorokin for one reason and one reason only. I think Ilya Sorokin's upside is higher at this point in his career than Semyon Varlamov. And I think in the long run, Sorokin is your starter. And if you want to get to the playoffs, you go with the guy who is going to be your long-term solution. Now, that being said, I go with the guy who got you here, so to speak, but I have a very short leash. And if Sorokin is struggling, by all means, I wouldn't hesitate to go to Varley. But I think if you sit Sorokin for the, if Varley starts for the 4th time in the last 5 games, how does that affect Sorokin psychologically? How does that, look overall for this team? What ramifications does it have? So to me, it's easier if Sorokin struggles. Varley is there, but I would lean toward Ilya Sorokin if given a choice. I love Varley. I think he's a very solid goaltender. As far as backup goalies are concerned, I think he's one of the better backup goalies in the league. And, you look at the numbers this year, and Varlamov has better stats than Sorokin. Now, again, it's a smaller sample size. Sorokin has started 52 games. That's more than double the 23 that Varlamov has started. But goals against average, Varlamov 2.84, Sorokin 3.04. Save percentage, Varlamov 0.912, Sorokin 0.907. They both have 2 shutouts. And the one-loss record, again, I think favors Varley a little bit, because Sorokin is 23, 19, and 11, which means essentially he's 23 and 30, even though they got 11 loser points. Varlamov is 10, 8, and 4. That makes him 10 and 12. More than anything, I think the way the team is played in front of both of them is the bigger problem. So if I'm Patrick Roy, the question becomes, who's more likely to steal a game for me? Who's more likely to make the saves that are in crucial situations? I think they're both capable, but I think, again, the upside belongs to Ilya Sorokin. He has a higher ceiling, and therefore I would lean toward Sorokin when all is said and done. But we'll see what Patrick Roy decides to do tonight and then beyond tonight, because, again, 6 more games after tonight's match with the Blue Jackets, 2 of them against the New York Rangers. And I'll say one other thing. If the Islanders get that second wild card, or let's just say this, at this point, if the Islanders get into the playoffs, they may end up facing the New York Rangers, who they have not faced in the postseason since 1994. And I know New York hockey fans, it's been way too long since, 30 years since the Rangers and Islanders have met in a playoff series. It is time. All right. We've got a lot more to discuss on today's show. We'll preview tonight's game against the Blue Jackets. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you could still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of first quarter 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial, LLC. Member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Islanders, Blue Jackets, 7 o'clock Eastern time start tonight in Columbus. Big game for the New York Islanders. And again, you could hear every minute of this game on SiriusXM. You'll hear the Islanders hometown radio broadcast. Just go to the SXM app and do a search for Islanders. The Blue Jackets, as we all know, have not had an easy season. Injuries have been a big reason for it. They are right now 19 games behind the Islanders in the standings, 25, 38, and 12. They have 62 points. The Islanders have 81 points. So again, that is the reason for, this is a game the Islanders, if you want to make the playoffs, you can't lose. And yet, Columbus has won 2 in a row. They beat Pittsburgh. They beat the Colorado Avalanche. Yes, it was April Fool's Day, but still. And that was their last game. So they have had a couple of days off. The Islanders only had 1. Look, this is not a good team top to bottom. Goals for, 25th in the league. Goals against, 30th. The power play, 31st in the league. They only succeed 14.4% of the time. The PK, 24th in the league. They kill 76.7% of their penalties. And, we mentioned injuries. They are plentiful right now for this team. And the goaltending has changed since the trade deadline, so we'll adjust that. There is still talent on this roster. You got to start with Johnny Gaudreau, who is not having a great year, but still leads the team with 56 points. Only 11 goals, though, for Johnny Hockey. You look at this lineup right now, and it's Dmitry Voronkov centering Gaudreau and Alex Nylander on the top line. Cole Sillinger, Alexander Texier, and Kirill Marchenko. That's the second line. Brendan Gaunce, Mikhail Pythia, and Matthew Olivier are the third line. Justin Danforth centers James Malatesta and Carson Meyer on the fourth line. Zach Werenski, always dangerous. He and Damon Severson are the top pair on defense. Ivan Provorov and Jake Bean, the second pairing, and Jake Christensen and Eric Gabranson are the third pair. The goalies right now, Daniil Tarasov and Jet Graves. Tarasov 8-11 and 3 on the year. He has a 3.14 goals against average and a 909 save percentage. Graves only played 3 games. He's 1-2 with a 907 save percentage and a 338 goals against average. And, the injury list, Adam Fantilli, their big rookie, he's been out of the lineup. Patrick Laine out of the lineup. Sean Curley out of the lineup. Igor Chinakov, day-to-day. Adam Boqvist, day-to-day. Boone Jenner, day-to-day. Elvis Merzlikins, day-to-day. Kent Johnson is on IR. That's a long injury list for this team. And, the biggest key in my mind, you got to take advantage of the shaky defense that Columbus tends to play. Now, again, in their last 2 games, they've given up a total of 4 goals. So they've been a little better. But, you can't, the biggest key in my mind, do not play down to the competition. You cannot take the Columbus Blue Jackets or any team lightly. And, on social media, I heard saw a lot of listeners and viewers of the show talking about, or in the comments on YouTube, the Islanders barely beat the Blackhawks, and the Blackhawks are not a good team right now. And that's true. So to me, the key is do not take this team lightly. Go out there and get the 2 points that you're supposed to get in the standings and just move on. And look, the Islanders have beaten Columbus in each of the other matches, the 2 matches they've had. Shut them out all the way back in October, on October 28th, 2-0. And that was in Columbus. Beat them at UBS in December by a score of 7-3. They have got to get out there and essentially take care of business because, again, so little margin for error for this team the rest of the way if they hope to sneak into the playoffs. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And, we're a day early, but Friday will be the 58th birthday of former Islanders winger Brent Hughes. The native of New Westminster, BC, 5'11", 180 pounds, was not drafted, made his NHL debut with the Winnipeg Jets in 88-89, then played for the Boston Bruins, the Buffalo Sabres, and joined the Islanders for the 96-97 season, played in 51 games for the Isles, 7 goals, 10 points, 57 penalty minutes that year. In his career, 357 games, 41 goals, 80 points, 831 penalty minutes. He did play in 29 postseason games, but none of them were with the Islanders. Did go into coaching, was a head coach in the CHL and the NAHL, but hasn't coached since 2010, 2011. So essentially not doing the coaching thing anymore. Brent Hughes, one of his better games with the Islanders. We take you to October 26th, 1996 at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Islanders in the original fisherman jerseys. The visiting team is the San Jose Sharks. Former Islander Kelly Rudy, the goalie for San Jose. Tommy Salo, the netminder for the Islanders. And our Islanders birthday of the day, Brent Hughes gets the Isles on the board first, just 9.5 minutes into the game. His first goal as an Islander, Dan Plant and Brian Berard with the assist. Travis Green made it 2-0 Islanders after 2 periods, but goals by Michael Sikora and Owen Nolan in the 3rd period. This game ended in a 2-2 tie. But for our Islanders birthday of the day, Brent Hughes, he scored. He was a +1, and he scored on his only shot on goal. So Brent Hughes is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we will have our key takeaways from tonight's game against the Blue Jackets, and we'll preview the game over the weekend on Saturday against the Nashville Predators at UBS Arena. They're all big games from here on in, so definitely make sure you join us for that. Until then, stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. And of course, let's go Islanders.